Hi and welcome to the second video in the series about hearts, and today we're going to be looking at some exam questions. So these questions are taken from the Edexcel Biology 1 paper, and this is for AS Biology. Okay, so many animals have hearts that pump blood through a network of blood vessels. The table below refers to the blood flow of the four major blood vessels in the human heart. If the statement is correct, place a tick in the appropriate box. If the statement is incorrect, place a cross in the appropriate box, and it's worth 4 marks. Okay, so you've got the names of the four blood vessels, and then the first question is carries blood away from the heart. So the blood vessels that carry it away are arteries. So the two arteries are the aorta and the pulmonary artery, so that goes away from the heart. That therefore means that the vena cava, a vein, and the pulmonary vein also carry it back to the heart. And so for that section I would assume 2 marks are available. Okay, so carrying oxygenated blood. Now we know from previous videos that the side that deals with oxygenated blood is the left hand side, and we also know therefore that the right hand side deals with deoxygenated blood. So thinking about that then, we know that the major blood vessel coming off the left ventricle is the aorta, and that goes to the body, and therefore it must carry oxygenated blood. The vena cava, which is attached to the right atria, that carries blood back from the body, and so that would carry deoxygenated blood. Now with the last two, this can get somewhat confusing because we would assume because it's an artery it should carry oxygenated blood, but in this example the pulmonary artery, this is virtually the only artery that carries deoxygenated blood because it's going to the lungs and it's connected to the right ventricle, so the right hand side, and so therefore the pulmonary vein carries blood back to the heart, which is rich in oxygen, back to the left hand side. The other question, the diagram below shows the structure of the heart. Suggest which stage of the cardiac cycle is shown in the diagram and give you reasons for the answer. Okay, so you have your heart here and you have the different chambers. So at the top here you have the right atria and left atria. Remember, this is done from the perspective of the person whose heart it is. And below that you have the two ventricles, and so the left ventricle here and the right ventricle here. You also have some of the attached blood vessels. So this one here attached to the right atrium, the right ventricle. This would be the pulmonary artery. This blood vessel that serves the right atria, this would therefore be the vena cava. So you have the superior section here and the inferior here. You also have these blood vessels which serve the left atria, and those blood vessels will be the pulmonary vein, and then this blood vessel that loops up and round, which is a very large blood vessel, which is the aorta. So it says which stage of the cardiac cycle is shown in the diagram and give you reasons for the answer. And so the cardiac cycle is referring to whether something is in systole, and so that's if it's contracting, or if it's in diastole, if it's relaxing. And so we can see here that the valves are either open or closed. Now you have two sets of valves here. You have your atrioventricular, those two there, and so those are between the arteries, the atria and the ventricles, and you also have your semilunar valves, and these are found between the ventricles and their associated blood vessels, the aorta and the pulmonary artery, and you can see that the semilunar valves are closed. The fact that the semilunar valves are closed means that the pressure must be greater in the blood vessels than it is in the ventricles, and therefore they're shut. You'll also note that the atrioventricular or AV valves, those ones are open. What that means is the pressure must be higher in the atria than it is in the ventricles. Now, the only circumstance in which this is true is in atrial systole. You could also refer to it as ventricular diastole, but atrial systole would do here. And the reason why we know it's this is because the AV valve is open, and therefore the blood can flow into the ventricles, and the SL valve is shut. You would probably get 1 mark for mentioning atrial systole, and then I would assume you may need to mention both sets of valves. The more key one, clearly, is the fact that the AV valve is open. Really gives clue to this.